probably all wondering, will his microphone work today? Will he be on the right mic? Will he be muted? Who knows? But let's start with a little nails to the ear. Senator Duckworth grilling Pete Hegseth.
Please describe to me, Mr. Hegsetnh, you talk about DOD passing an audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant. I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen if, whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no? I don't want a long answer. Yes or no? Have you led an audit of any organization of which you were in charge?
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes or no, did you lead an audit? Yes or no? What are you afraid of? You can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit? Do you not know this answer?
Senator, every part of my leadership of these organizations has been misrepresented.
I will take that as a no. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegsetnh.
I've got to say, if your goal was to convince Pete Hegseth that he was wrong on his position of women in the military, Elizabeth Warren, Gillibrand, Huniro, I forget her name, Hawaii, and Duckworth really didn't do justice today to prove Pete Hegseth wrong. You're not an accountant. Did you lead an audit? It's beyond words as to how preposterous, outlandish, insane, insulting, demeaning, condescending, and beneath the dignity of human intelligence, what we witnessed today. I was listening to this while I was driving to do the episode of The Unusual Suspects. Within 5 seconds of anyone speaking, I could tell if they were Democrat or Republican. Within the 5 seconds of determining whether or not they were Democrat or Republican, I could predict. There was one exception where the Democrat wasn't cognitively challenged. There was only one Democrat who was not toxic, foul stupidity. Today was Pete Hegseth's confirmation hearing. I don't think they've held the vote yet. I have to double check when the vote is. We're going to get to that. And we're also going to talk about Jack Smith's phenomenal report that he has been authorized to release. The citizen Jack Smith, unlawfully appointed as a special counsel, somehow gets to release his report. We'll get there. Also, we're going to do the latest updates on California. But before we even get there, good afternoon, people of the interwebs. Let me see that we are currently live on vivabarneslaw.locals.com. That I can tell because we're here. And I'm going to go over to Rumble, Free Speech Rumble. Make sure that we're good over here. We should be. We're looking good. We are. And CommuTube, we're here. The link to Rumble, people, is in the pinned comment on YouTube. Tonight, 6 o'clock, Unusual Suspects. It will be airing, and I will be on it. Talking about the stolen Humvees, eh? We did cover it yesterday, that they found 2 of the 3 Humvees, but not the armored Humvee. Oh, I'm just reading. Toxic, foul stupidity. Viva bag of jargon. Me likey, says Chien Visage. I have to double check when the hearing is. But before we even get started for today's show, everybody, we start off with stuff that makes you want to puke. And then we're going to get into the stuff that will wake you up in the morning and be the exact opposite of stuff that makes you gag. 1775 Coffee. Speaking of supporting a company like Rumble that supports free speech, 1775 Coffee is the partner with Rumble, and they make delicious freaking coffee. I knew that I had gotten our new order this morning because I looked at my wife and said, Marion, coffee doesn't taste like Jamaican Me Crazy. What was it? It was not vanilla. It was like hazelnut. I said, this doesn't taste like Jamaican Me Crazy hazelnut coffee because it was 1775 coffee and it was delicious to my taste buds. Drinking 2 to 3 cups in the morning could slash your risk of death by 29% and cut your chances of heart complications by nearly half. But if your coffee tastes like it was brewed by someone with blue hair, a nose ring, or any one of the Democrats grilling Pete Hegseth today, those benefits aren't going to be doing you any favors. Enter 1775 Coffee. This isn't just coffee. It's a rebellion in every cup. Handpicked at the high altitudes and sourced from single origin farms, 1775 Coffee delivers bold flavor and benefits that the Starbucks sugar company can't. Did you know, like, Starbucks is basically sugar in a cup. Boost your metabolism, protect your heart, stay sharper than ever for debates and free speech. Whether it's beans, grounds, or pods, every sip of 1775 coffee tastes like a stand against mediocrity. Head over to 1775coffee.com. Promo code VIVA gets you 15% off. Make mornings great again with coffee that fuels bold flavor, uncompromising quality, and the freedom Rumble stands for every day. And check out their Tesla Cybertruck giveaway. I have verified. I am ineligible. I am ineligible to submit, people. Gosh darn it. At least that was my understanding. But I would not even submit even if I were eligible to win that Cybertruck, because someone out there wants it more than me, deserves it more than me, needs it more than me. And I am kind of in love with my Bronco with the doors off, driving that thing around. It's like being on a roller coaster. It's like an adrenaline rush every time you drive a car. And I'm not sure that that's healthy, but it's fantastic. The link is in the description. So are we following, have you been following this today? I didn't live stream it. I probably should have. I'm going to definitely live stream the Tulsi Gabbard and the RFK Jr. confirmation hearings, which have not, they haven't been scheduled yet, but we got more hearings tomorrow. And I may or may not do that because tomorrow I've got Călin Georgescu, the Romanian presidential candidate who has seen his victory snatched away from him by a court that invalidated, undid the election results of the first round of those elections to be determined if they're disqualifying him from the second round. He's coming on tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. So it's going to be amazing. When is the Pete Hegseth confirmation vote? I think it's today. Does it not happen typically right after the debates? Let's just see. The confirmation hearing for Pete Hegseth today is today. However, the specific date for the confirmation vote by the full Senate has not been explicitly stated in the available information. Typically, after the committee hearing, the Senate Armed Services Committee would vote on the nomination. If it passes, the nomination would then proceed to the full Senate vote, given the current date is January 14, 2025 at 1:37 Pacific. It's likely that the vote would occur in the near future, potentially within the next few days or weeks, depending on the Senate's schedule. That is what Grok has to tell us, people. But who in the chat, just let me know who watched it. It's so disgusting. Like I think I like Pete Hegseth. I think I know when people are treated unfairly, and Pete Hegseth is being treated unfairly. Unfairly is an understatement. I'm going to play all of Duckworth's her 5 or 7 minutes. Let's see. A lot of people say they watched it. Saw about 45 minutes, says Sally Yankee in our locals community, and it looks like most people on Rumble, above average people out there as well, watched it. It was disgusting. I'll summarize it. We don't need to go through all of them. I'll try to pull up some other highlights that I have on the back burner. They're going after Pete Hegseth, who's Secretary of Defense. Tapped for Secretary of Defense. Let me just make sure I'm not making a mistake on that. Secretary of Defense, and it's Pete Hegseth. Don't want to make a mistake. When we made a mistake on the Medal of Secretary of Defense, okay, Trump's Defense Secretary. We made a mistake on Medal of Freedom versus the Medal of Valor. Our locals community and Rumble community were on our back, and rightly so. The tap for Secretary of Defense. He's going to manage the military, and there was lots of talk about doing an audit. Lots of talk about Pete Hegseth's infidelity. Lots of talk about what they like to pretend is not an anonymous complaint, but it's anonymous to people who don't know who the complainant is, about his alleged sexual impropriety at a hotel at a conservative convention back in 2017, which was, and I manufactured into an accusation of impropriety. Assault of the sexual nature. I listened to the highlights. So I mean, Duckworth got on my nerves more than what's her name? The Hawaiian one. When I was growing up and I used to watching things with my father, and he said this is a dog and pony show. It's for grandstanding. They don't really care about anything. They just want to get their sound bites in there. And I didn't really understand it back then, but holy hell, do I understand it right now. Some of it was so damn insulting. Some of it was so damn demeaning, degrading, that you have people out there weighing people in the Senate weighing in on Pete Hegseth's ability, credentials to be Secretary of Defense, because they were asking him, like, how many people have you managed? How many corporations have you been involved in that would grant you or give you the requisite credentials to be Secretary of Defense? This is a man who served. This is a man who has, other than the infidelity, which is a whole bag of hypocrisy that we're going to get into, they're trying to undermine his ability, his credentials to be Secretary of Defense. I guess I have to. We're going to go through what's her faces. We're going to go through Duckworth first because it is enough to make you want to vomit, and it's enough to make you realize we're governed by idiots. We're governed by idiots. Listen to this. I'll stop through this periodically. This is my personal repulsive highlight of the day, and I'm going to pull up Hirono afterwards, and then we're going to pull up some jokes. But listen to this.
Senator Duckworth, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And also Secretary Matters had to have this waiver as well.
By the way, pay attention to how long she grandstands for before asking her first disingenuous, dishonest question. It's an amazing thing. I know that I'm prone to viewing Democrats as lying, dirty, rotten scoundrels. I just want one of them to prove me wrong. I'm waiting for it.
Mr. Hegsetnh, this hearing is about whether you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And one of the qualifications, to answer my colleague's question, is to actually win the votes of every member of this committee and to be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you need to convince us that you're worthy of that vote, because the people of the state of Illinois voted for me to be their senator so that I could cast that vote when it comes to picking who is going to be the next Secretary of Defense.
And you know what's funny? The people of America voted for Donald Trump so that he could appoint who he thinks should be the next Secretary of Defense. I agree that technically they got a vote on it. And the people of Illinois did vote for Duckworth to vote on that. But she doesn't follow her own reasoning here. The people of Illinois voted for her so that she could decide whether to vote yay or nay on Pete Hegsetnh. The people, 77 million of them, voted for Donald Trump because they want his team in the White House, and that involves who he thinks should be picked for Secretary of Defense. Set aside that hypocrisy. We're 33 seconds in. I don't hear a question yet.
This hearing now seems to be a hearing about whether or not women are qualified to serve in combat.
That's because you don't stop asking the question of Pete Hegsetnh. It's not because of him. It's because of you. So it's good. Hijack the hearings. Make it all about statements he made about women serving in combat. Statements that not many people, if they stop to think about it, would really disagree with. That by and large, if you have certain physical thresholds for criteria to fight, some women will pass it, but by and large, men will pass it way more often than women. Okay.
And not about whether or not you are qualified to be Secretary of Defense. And let me just say that the American people need a SecDef who's ready to lead on day one. You are not that person. Our adversaries watch closely during times of transition.
Listen to
and
this.
any sense that the Department of Defense that keeps us safe is being steered by someone who's wholly unprepared for the job puts America at risk. And I am not willing to do that.
She's not willing to do that. By the way, they've got a demented, absentee, lame duck president, and the world is falling to pieces. Does she not put that together? I don't know. Having someone who's unfit for the job in a position of weakness is bad for me. I'm not willing to do that, but I wholeheartedly support Joe Biden and the way the world is falling apart under his absentee, incompetent, degenerate, mentally unfit leadership.
That in mind,
By the way, what are we at now? We're at a minute. I haven't heard a question yet.
Mr. Hegsetnh, I want you to try to explain to the American people, this committee, who have to vote for you, and to our troops who are deployed around the world, why you are qualified to lead the Department of Defense.
By the way, you notice she got a whole written statement. You're going to see her flipping through this the entire time. You think her mind is made up? You think these are sincere, genuine questions to get information to allow her to come to the proper? No. This is motivated reasoning by a partisan hack who came in with a foregone conclusion, and nothing is going to change anything. She wants her grandstanding. She wants her moment. She wants her sound clip. Her decision is made. And now it's just a question of asking the questions to justify that foregone conclusion. Maybe not even to her, because who the hell knows what she thinks, but to her constituents.
We already know that you've only led the largest, a 200-person organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after organization. We already know that you so badly mangled a budget that after you left, they had to bring in a forensic accountant.
A forensic accountant. This is all a lie, by the way. This is a lie based on other evidence that was submitted. They're trying to make him look like he mismanaged the funds of the not-for-profit that he was working for. It's all a lie. And by the way, you need to have an accountant. I think certain corporations by law are required to have audits. So a forensic audit is an audit. It's not an evidence of wrongdoing, but these filthy scoundrels can't ask a question without loading it with bullshit accusations.
To figure out what went wrong. And that the largest budget you ever managed was about $18 billion.
18,
You know, that is about
18 billion.
51,560 times lower than the Department of Defense budget of $825 billion. $16 million.
I think she doesn't even know what she's saying here at this point. I think she just said $18 billion. Now she's down to $16 million.
Is 51,560
You can't read your own stupid statement,
smaller than the defense budget. Please describe to me, Mr. Hegsetnh, you talk about
By the way, we are a minute and 55 seconds in. She hasn't asked a question yet.
Audit. Please describe to me a time or an organization when that you led underwent an audit, because you say you're going to hire smarter people than you to run this audit. I'm not asking you to be an accountant.
I'm not asking you to be an accountant.
I want you to be able to tell me what kind of guidance will be given to those employees, what will happen if, whether or not you pass that audit. Have you led an audit of any organization? Yes or no?
We are 2 minutes and 18 seconds into this unhinged tirade. And now she got her first question. I'm not asking you to be an accountant, but have you led an audit?
I don't want a long answer. Yes or no. Have you led an audit of any organization?
This is the face of a man like, I can't believe I have to sit here and be subjected to this.
Which you were in charge.
Senator, in both of the organizations I ran, we were always completely fiscally responsible.
Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
And the way
yes
my
or
leadership
no,
has
did you lead
been
an audit?
stated
Yes or
has
no?
been completely
What are you afraid of? You
mischaracterized.
can't answer this question. Yes or no, did you lead an audit?
Does this makes anybody else want to puke? This is so juvenilely performative.
Do you not know this answer?
Senator,
Yes
every
or
part
no?
of my leadership
Yes
of these
or no?
organizations
Yes
has
or
been
no, did you lead an audit?
misrepresented
I will
from
take
top
that as
to
a
bottom.
no. What were the findings? So there were no findings because you've never led an audit. What guidance did you give the auditors? None, because you've never led an audit.
But you're not an accountant. I don't expect you to be an accountant.
Nobody expects you to be an accountant, Mr. Hegsetnh. What we expect is for you to understand the complexity of this Pentagon budget process that is absolutely necessary to outfit our warfighters. Look, the Secretary of Defense is required to make quick decisions every single day.
What's she doing with her papers?
With high-level information that's being provided for them. A Secretary of Defense has to have breadth and depth of knowledge. Right now, I am concerned that you have neither. Mr. Hegsetnh, what is the highest level of international negotiations that you have engaged in, that you have led in? Because the Secretary of Defense does lead international security negotiations. There are three main ones that the Secretary of Defense.
This is unhinged, hysterical. She's not even breathing, let alone stopping in between her questions.
Leads and signs. Can you name at least one of them?
Could you repeat the question, Senator?
Sure. What is the highest level of international security agreement that you have led? And can you name some that
What's
the
the highest
Secretary of
one you
Defense
would
would lead?
Name
There's three
some.
main ones.
There's three main.
Do you know?
I have not been involved in international security arrangements because I have not been in government other than serving in the military. So my job has been to
So no, the
lead
answer is no.
men
Can
and
you
women in
name one?
Hey, look, maybe I'm not the best person to make this accusation. Is it very difficult to let the man actually answer the question? He's not there to answer questions. He's there to be verbally abused, and that's all these filthy Democrats did all day long.
The three main ones that the
You're talking
Secretary of
about
Defense
defense
signs.
arrangements. I mean, NATO might be one that you're referring to.
Status of Forces Agreement would be one of them.
Status of Forces Agreement. I've been a part of teaching about Status of Forces Agreements.
But you don't
inside
remember to
Afghanistan.
mention it? You're not qualified, Mr. Hegsetnh. You're not qualified. You talk about repairing our defense industrial complex. You're not qualified to that. You could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. Can you name
Mention it up.
the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations, and how many nations are in ASEAN?
Can you understand? Name one of the nations. How many nations? I mean, name the importance of the nations. ASEAN. Oh, it's so nice. It's nice. She has her handwritten prepared notes. She's gonna get him on this. She's gonna get him on the spot right now. Look at this. She thinks she's got a checkmate.
ASEAN, by the way.
I couldn't tell you the exact
No, you
amount of
couldn't,
nations
because
in
you've
that,
not
but I
even
know we have
bothered to
allies
do-
in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia and trying to work
Okay.
on submarines with them.
Mr.
and data
Hegsetnh,
transfers
none
with
of those
them.
countries
We
are
have
in
allies
ASEAN.
across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare.
I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare. Okay, that makes total sense. Well done. You had a written statement, and you still screwed it up.
For these types of negotiations.
Do your homework
Listen,
before you prepare.
Mr. Hegsetnh, this is, we ask our troops to go into harm's way all the time. We ask them to go into harm's way.
I'll skip. I'll skip this. I can't stand the rest of this. Let's just get to the final berating here.
Women who've earned their place in their units. You have not earned your place as Secretary of Defense. You say you care about keeping our armed forces strong and that you like that our armed forces are meritocracy.
I don't understand what you just
Then
said.
let's not lower the standards for you. You, sir, are a no-go at this station.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. I would like to submit for the record a letter submitted by Mr. Brian Marriott that says anyone who would claim that Pete mismanaged funds at Vets for Freedom is ignorant of the facts.
Vets for Freedom. It's an amazing thing, and the problem is, Senator Duckworth is an injured veteran, and for the service, for her sacrifice, she is, I don't know if the word is owed, but deserves everyone's respect. That doesn't mean that she gets to act like an absolute ass and then hide behind her military service and her military sacrifice to become an absolute abusive, unhinged lunatic when it comes to treating other veterans with the requisite degree of respect that they deserve. That it was so shameless and so humiliating. I mean, the thing is, I don't know who looks at that and says, that's my senator. Way to go, Duckworth. That was totally sane. That was totally hinged. And that was totally value added and productive. And you feel bad, like, oh, do I put on baby gloves to deal with Senator Duckworth because she's a military veteran who has sacrificed more for her country physically than I have for my? Okay, that's true. And 2 things can be true at once. That was disgusting and unhinged. And I would dare say disqualifying from being a senator, disqualifying from representing your country when you treat veterans and your political adversaries with such egregious disrespect. But the words, it wasn't even that. I mean, that was at the very least substantive in the sense that she's going after Pete Hegseth's qualifications to manage the defense, to be the Secretary of Defense. Let me bring this one up here. Is this the one? Yeah. Is this Gillibrand? Let me see here.
Thank you,
The
Mr.
whole thing.
Chairman, and
I
welcome,
promise you.
Mr. Hegseth, to you and to your family. Thank you for
I
the
thank you for your
meeting that we
service. Who's
had. We
this one?
talked about a number of things. First and
No,
foremost
this is not
was that
Gillibrand. Hold on. Let me get Gillibrand. She was no, we're watching this. We're watching
nuclear
this.
weapons are foundational to our national defense, and having a safe, effective, and credible nuclear deterrent underpins our alliances, and as you know, it deters our adversaries. Nuclear deterrence has been, and you and I believe, agreed on this, it must continue to be unequivocally the highest priority mission of the Department of Defense. But deterrence only works if our adversaries believe our nuclear forces are effective and credible. All 3 legs of our triad are undergoing that generational recapitalization programs, and we cannot afford
This is absolutely
any more delays in those
Here
programs.
we go. Sorry.
Former
Scrap it.
City Council President
We're
of
moving forward.
Samara, Iraq,
Here
who
we go.
worked with Mr. Hegseth in Iraq.
Holy cow.
Without objection, that will be entered. Senator Gillibrand.
Here we
Thank you,
go.
Mr. Chairman.
Listen to this.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. I do want to thank you for your service, and I want
But
to thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity.
but I know more
Thanks,
than you, and you're not
I
fit
have
to.
many concerns about your record, and particularly your public statements, because they are so hurtful to the men and women who are currently serving in the U.S. military.
Pause. I don't care if they're hurtful, if they're true. A. B. Who told you they're hurtful? Do you think there's anyone out there who found it hurtful to say that by and large, men are better fit for combat than women? There's, in a sense, there's a reason why wars have been waged by men throughout the history of humanity. There's a reason why men commit the vast majority of murders. There's a reason for it. Did anyone actually complain about being hurt, insulted? Was it the 5'2" lady who couldn't cut it? Was it the obese man who couldn't cut it? Oh, sorry, I'm going to shut my big mouth and let Gillibrand keep talking.
Harmful to morale, harmful to good order and discipline. If you are saying that women shouldn't be serving in the military, and I'm going to read you your quotes.
Combat.
Because the quotes themselves are terrible. You will have to change how you see women to do this job well, and I don't know if you are capable of that. So I want to press on these issues that my colleague Jean Shaheen brought up because she said it so well.
Oh, she said it terribly.
So first of all, you answered your questionnaire. Do you believe that any American who wants to serve in their country in the military and can meet objective standards set by the military should be allowed to serve without limitation? You've said yes to that question. But then in all of these other circumstances, you've denigrated active duty service members. We have
Let's hear the statements.
hundreds of women who are currently in the infantry, lethal members of our military.
Why is she screaming? Like, why do they have to scream?
Military serving in the infantry, but you degrade them. You say, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units.
Is there something offensive about the idea that you don't want to have moms in combat units? I mean, I presume that means for a certain period of time where you might not want to have a woman who has a newborn or a young child in combat. Who finds that offensive? Show of hands?
So specific to Senator Cotton's question, because Senator Cotton was giving you layups to differentiate between different types of combat. And specifically, as secretary, would you take any action to reinstitute the combat arms exclusion for female service members, knowing full well you have hundreds of women doing that job right now? And the standards, your 2 mile run, Tom, is about the Army combat fitness test. It is not the requirements to have an MOS 11 Bravo, which is the infantry.
She has no idea what she's talking about, but she's got her notes that are written up by whatever intern she has, and she's reading the words on the paper and thinks that she's coming off as an expert.
These are the requirements today for people serving in the industry, men and women. They are gender neutral, and they are very difficult to meet. They have not been reduced in any way, and our combat units, our infantry is lethal. So please explain specifically, because you will be in charge of 3 million personnel. It is a big job. And when you make these public statements, and I get you were not Secretary of Defense then, I get you were on TV, I get you were helping veterans, I get it was a different job. But most recently, you said this in November of 2024, knowing full well you might have been named as Secretary of Defense.
By the way, when she made the assertion that they haven't reduced the qualifications, and I'm just going by a grok here, but we all know the answer. Physical fitness standards. There have been modifications to physical fitness standards. For example, in 2022, the Army revised its physical fitness test to allow women and older soldiers to pass with slightly reduced standards in some events. This change was made following a RAND study, which suggested that the test was better used to assess general fitness rather than job performance, and that tiered standards could reduce punitive outcomes for certain groups. Recruitment and training programs. The Army initiated programs like the Future Soldier Preparatory Course to help recruits who do not initially meet weight or aptitude requirements for service. So at least they're trying to train it out of them. Readiness and standards. There's been a debate and concern over whether the military has lowered standards due to recruitment challenges. The Army's top general expressed in 2022 that lowering entry standards could be dangerous, emphasizing a focus on quality over quantity in recruitment. This suggests an ongoing tension between maintaining high combat readiness standards and filling recruitment quotas. In summary, while there have been adjustments in physical fitness standards and entry requirements to help with recruitment, the core combat requirements in terms of operational demands and the expectations of soldiers in combat solutions have not been explicitly reduced. Instead, these changes aim to expand the pool of eligible recruits while maintaining combat readiness throughout different means. Let's get back to Gillibrand here. Gillibrand.
Please explain these types of statements, because they're brutal. And they're mean.
Oh, they're mean.
And they disrespect men and women who are willing to die for this country.
How long has she been talking for without asking a question?
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments. And I would point out, I've never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member that has put on the uniform, past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty service members, men and women, low ranks, high ranks, combat arms and not combat arms. And what each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions, to ensure that
Give me one
commanders meet
example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these
Give me an
generalized
meet
statements.
quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those women who are
Commanders do
incredibly
not have to
capable
be
of meeting
quotas
that
for the
standard.
infantry. Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist. It does not exist. And your statements are creating the impression that these exist, because they do not. There are not quotas. We want the most lethal force. But I'm telling you, having been here for 15 years, listening to testimony about men and women in combat and the type of operations that were successful in Afghanistan and in Iraq, women were essential for many of those units. When Ranger units went in to find where the terrorists hiding in Afghanistan or in Iraq, if they had a woman in the unit, they could go in, talk to the women in a village, say, where are the terrorists hiding? Where are the weapons hiding? And get crucial information to make sure that we can win that battle. So you cannot denigrate women in general, and your statements do that. We don't want women in the military, especially in combat. What a terrible statement. So please, do not deny that you've made those statements. You have. We take the responsibility of standards very seriously, and we will work with you. I'm equally distressed.
Put on pause here for 1 second. Again, diversity goals versus quotas. There are diversity goals and initiatives aimed at increasing the representation of women in various roles, including combat arms. These goals are not quotas in the traditional sense, but rather strategic efforts to ensure the military reflects the broader population and to tap into all available talent pools. The Department of Defense has been criticized for setting such goals, with some interpreting them as quotas, though the officials have clarified that these are not explicit quotas. And this is coming from the government website. Female activity, duty, personnel. It's a phenomenally disingenuous thing where they deny what's going on, but then celebrate it at the same time. You know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're not doing it, but it's a great thing that we are. There are not quotas because we're now changing the word quota. We're changing the word vaccine. We're changing the word racist, Nazi, whatever, so that we can say it's not there. There's no quotas. There's an initiative to ensure a broader representation so that your firefighter looks like you when they're saving you. Because everything that you want, what you obviously want is a 5'5.5" firefighter dragging you out of a burning building, or a 250-pound firefighter dragging you out of a building. And it went on like that all day. These were the fairest in terms of the substance. I'm not even going to dignify the other ones where they were going after Pete Hegseth's faith. There was one jackass who actually suggested that Pete Hegseth has only recently found God, that he's not a true Christian. He was I forget who the character that he was comparing him to on his way to Jerusalem. And they're attacking his assertions of his belief in his faith. They were then going after his infidelity. Hold on. They went after his infidelity as though, I mean, look, infidelity, morally, it's wrong. By the time it occurs in a marriage, typically there are a great many other things that are going wrong in that marriage, that the infidelity is a symptom of a problem and not the cause of the problem. And that is not to whitewash it or to explain it away. And my fundamental belief is that you cheat on your spouse, you are asking to wake up with something pointing at your face and not genitalia, if you know what I'm saying. They went after his infidelity, that he had this incident after his wife had recently given birth. It was the most disgusting smear campaign I've ever seen in my life. And it is not to say that there's nothing wrong with infidelity. We've already put the asterisk on that, or the asterisk, however you pronounce it. It was nothing more than putting it on blast, trying to interfere with what I understand is his salvage relationship with his current spouse, and to put on blast his immoral, improper, whatever you want to call it, unethical behavior. What does it have to do with being Secretary of Defense? Absolutely nothing. There are probably a great many people who might say, yeah, I'm a man who's a woman's man. Or is it a man's man? A man's man, a woman's man might be the type of person you want to lead. Yeah, I've never been in the military, but I've seen movies. And, you know, I don't think sleeping around is the biggest taboo in military life. And I don't, in law, it wasn't the biggest taboo. And so they went after that, asking, you had sex with another woman after your current partner had given birth and you had a young child at home and you are performing acts of infidelity? Disgusting. Then we've already covered the Hegsetnh smear campaign as relates to the accusations that it was somehow not consensual with this woman at the conservative conference in Vegas. I forget where it was, 2017. And then they try to make it as though he's guilty of a crime, never charged, fully investigated. Yes, the woman went to get a rape kit afterwards. The video evidence that they reference there that nobody's ever seen except for them, and they know what it shows. It shows this alleged victim leaving a bar with him late at night, smiling, going back to his room willingly, only then to wake up the next morning and say, yeah, it was not consensual because I didn't get back to my husband in the same hotel room, in the same hotel by 4 a.m. So maybe I've got to think of an excuse as to how I've just been disloyal to my husband. It was disgusting. But I don't know how it's going to go down with the vote. So that's what it was. It's enraging to sit here and watch even the highlights. It was enraging to listen to this in real time, trying to destroy a person in real time because politics. This was a funny montage, by the way, and I had to double check that they were actually accurate because. But they were. This is what he had to put up with.
Yes,
Veterans
organizations
will help our veterans not every damn thing that they deserve because they signed on the dotted line.
Okay, we're gonna take that's the stuff of nightmares, straight up, people. Oi. So, anyways, my overall assessment, it wasn't a 10 on 10 for Hegsetnh. It wasn't a 10 on 10 for Hegsetnh for one specific question, which made the rounds as well. Hold on, let me see. I'll pull this one up because people are passing it off as a burn on Elizabeth Warren. I'm 50-50 on it. I mean, it's funny in a way, but I don't think it necessarily makes the point that everybody should be making. Here's the burn on Elizabeth Warren. Listen to this.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. In other words, you're quite.
So I mean, that's funny. He got a laugh out of at the expense of Elizabeth Warren, but when it comes to the substance of that question, he'll be above a general. Secretary of Defense, should he be able to go into defense after he's done? What was the exact term?
Sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. You're not willing to make that same pledge?
That's a fair. God. I mean, I loathe Elizabeth Warren, but I don't think. I mean, the same concern for generals going into the defense industry should apply to the Secretary of Defense. Someone's going to have to convince me why that's a wrong instinct on my part. So yeah, it's funny. He got a ha at the expense of Elizabeth Warren because he's not a general, but he'll be the Secretary of Defense. Someone try to convince me why I'm wrong in thinking that should be even more true of the Secretary of Defense, that you should not be making, relying on favors for when you're out of office, and that you should be subject to the same restriction of going into the private defense industry as Secretary of Defense than as a general. I'm curious to see what people think about that, but I don't want to get too. And so that was one question I would have appreciated the answer being, nobody should be, when serving their country, be investing in their future to go into the very industry that has unholy, I won't say unlawful, but unholy connections to the government. I mean, the military-industrial complex and its stranglehold over American government and American foreign policy is a problem. And in as much as presidents shouldn't be running around going to banks and giving speeches after they're out of office, I'm not convinced that the right answer is, I'll think about it for myself because I'm not a general. Because Viva, most high-ranking officers gear their entire career to get into the defense industry to cash in. Well, but I agree. But isn't that more true of the Secretary of Defense? As in, it's true of generals, and it's the insidious nature of the capture. So why wouldn't that be even more? His answer should have been, no. I think it should apply to everybody who serves. You're not investing in your future when you serve. You are unfortunately, you're making a sacrifice for the country. So that was an own, haha, but I don't think it was the right answer. And there was another. There were some times where it was clear that he had some prep lines and he was just going into prep line mode. But Viva Fry, this is from Neurodivergent 1. He'll be there for 4 years at the most. He deserves to make a living when he gets out. Generals are career military. But then that's I don't know. I'm not convinced by that argument, because then basically what you're saying is only because of the duration. I mean, if I'm not convinced by that, that might even be a stronger argument why, for his 4 years, which are limited, he might do even more to secure himself a hefty, well-paying position in the military sphere when he gets out. So. Okay, well, at least my reflex was not totally stupid, because nobody's out here saying, Viva, you're an idiot. Of course, there's a good reason why he should be able to go into the defense industry. So that was it. That was the highlights of the day, peeps. The question is this now, and I'm going to go to the chat. I do not have, I don't think this is something to place a bet on, because I think it's even more than a coin flipping. The question is going to be, how is the vote going to go? And it's an impossible thing to even like reasonably predict. Like, the most common, or the three biggest markets, or the three most likely odds, are 51, 52, 53 votes. 54, it starts dropping off, and then 55 and up, it's infinitesimal, because it would require more than 2 Democrats to flip and vote for Hegsetnh. DeWitt says, Viva, you're not thinking this through. That is a conclusion and not an argument. I've read the comment. It would have been so much more useful if you're not thinking this through, and here's why. Tell me why I'm not thinking it through. That is a statement of opinion, not an argument, and not a fact. So I want to see what the answer to that was. That's DeWitt. I'm looking for DeWitt's follow-up to explain to me why I'm not thinking this through and what I haven't thought through. It's very, very possible. Okay, now the question that I was just talking about was the vote. Numbers in the chat. What do you think the vote is going to be? Is it going to be 52, 53, or does he not get confirmed because they've managed to convince 3? It have to be 4 Republicans. Okay, let me see here. Well, anyways, we'll get it afterwards. That's basically those are the highlights. You don't need to watch it now. We've done the best part of it. What we are going to do, however, before we continue, is we're going to go over to Rumble. I'll take some questions. Viva, her parents weren't Indians, but she claimed to be. So why does she have to be? So why does he have to be a general? No. That question was, first of all, okay. While everyone makes their way over to Rumble, I'll give everybody a link. Make your way over to Locals if you want to come as well. When they were saying, what corporations, what have you managed in terms of number of people? And he's like, I had my not-for-profit. We had a team of 200. We managed a lot of, we did great things and amazing initiatives for helping veterans. Oh, well, you've never met. What the hell are they saying? You want Jeff Bezos now, who doesn't have military experience, but managed a big multinational corporation to manage the to be Secretary of Defense? I mean, and then I forget who it was. He's a ball buster and he's amazing. He's like, Pete Hegsetnh has managed more people than virtually all of the senators out here. You sons of bitches think you're in a position of authority to judge his credentials? He has more work experience than you. People are saying 53. 53 seems like but then some people are suggesting maybe Fetterman flips. DeWitt, not thinking it through because short-term roles will still have to make a living at the end of the short term. Okay, so you've rationalized the potential for corruption and maybe even enhanced it because it is so short term. The bottom line, you're making a sacrifice for your country. You can't, it's not a question of making a living afterwards, but it's a question of placing restrictions on it. The president is only president for 4 years. Presidents shouldn't be allowed to go out and immediately cash in through corrupt investments in their potential future speaking gigs. Like nobody pays you $600,000 an hour to speak at a bank unless you've done some favors in advance. So the presidency is only 4 years, maybe 8. That's not a good argument. Respectfully submitted. Yeah, so that he's not that he hasn't handled a bit, and that Duckworth as a veteran is somehow in a position to judge Hegsetnh as a veteran. Just disgusting. But the dirtiest, nastiest stuff was going after him for his infidelity and accusing him of sexual assault, sexual crimes when he had never been convicted, let alone even charged. And it's just the same shit over and over and over again. But yeah, like the chat says, we'll see dirty when they get to RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. We have a new member of our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. Wombats subscribed to Locals. Enjoy and welcome. You shall enjoy the community. It's amazing. Crash Bandit in the house says, let me see here, but as we work our way over, Viva, I can't wait to see how vile these people will be at RFK and Tulsi. My hatred of politics was not enough after watching that clown show today. They're bad people. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're bad, shameless people, but I suspect in their own minds, they're the heroes of their own story. Can anyone identify Senator Duckworth's speech? Is it an accent? What the hell is it? I think it's an accent. If I had to guess, I don't want to say anything more. That might be offensive. I think it's an accent. I don't think it's a speech impediment. Let's make all those women in this comedy sign up their daughters for the draft, like I had to do in high school. I will laugh my ass off when they change their tune. No, some of Hegseth's argument for why women in combat is a bad thing are totally legitimate. A distraction for male soldiers, something of a burden. I mean, look, there are some women who can pass the requirements undoubtedly, period. But if anybody's going to argue that the bestest, most ruthless of violent killers throughout humanity have historically been men, there have been some exceptions. There's a reason for that. And it's physiological, biological, and that's not even to say that I could pass those. There are probably many more women out there who could pass the infantry or combat requirements than I. Maybe I say that, but actually I can run a pretty decent mile. I can run a marathon. I ran 50 miles. I can do 10 chin-ups. I can do 60 push-ups. But no, I wouldn't take it as a personal insult if I couldn't. It's reality. It's biology. Okay, now on that note, over on CommieTube, there is a one old guy's opinion, $20 super chat said, display of how Dems philosophy. My shit don't stink. Slick with Clinton, Joe Bush. Bathe. You don't have to censor here. Maybe do you have to censor on YouTube? Bathed with his daughter, my Hunter, my dead brother's wife. Oh yeah, my Hunter Biden banged his dead brother's wife. Hillary eliminate witnesses. It's the infant. Oh, the showing up to work drunk. These MFers, smear merchant extraordinaires, all they do is operate in innuendo, smear, accusations that you can't even defend against once the accusation is out there. Reports have you showed up repeatedly drunk to work. First of all, fuck you. I'm sorry. Do you never have a Christmas party? Does that count as showing up? Does that count as getting drunk at work? When you go to a Christmas party? When you go to a 5 Hegsetnh? When he's working with Fox? I'm not even saying that he showed up to work drunk. All of those accusations have been countered by people who know Pete, who've worked with him for years. Well, anonymous reports of him showing drunk to work. Bullshit, first of all. And second of all, what does that even mean? If you're at a Christmas party or a holiday party or 5 to 7, does that count? And these who was the guy from Texas that was doing the Speaker of the House thing and he was slurring his words drunk? These scoundrels who have more DUIs than you can count. Some of them killed people with their cars. All of whom sleep around like it's nobody's business, boning their interns and inserting things into their genitalia. And these MFers are going to sit there and judge Pete Hegsetnh, a man with combat experience who Lord knows what trauma has led to whatever issues in his life. Scum of the earth. Now, what's the exact opposite of scum of the earth, people? The biltong that will make your taste buds melt. This is not an ad. The sponsor of today's show is 1775 Coffee, but you know what goes great with coffee? Biltong. Biltong says with this $25 Rumble rant, start your health journey this year with some tasty high-protein meat snacks. Biltong is packed with B12, iron, zinc, creatine, and more. Get some at biltongusa.com. Promo code VIVA for 10% off. Most career politicians are full-blown degenerates. There's no question about it. Most, not all. And you know, like, in as much like infidelity is an issue, it becomes an issue when people try to feign morality, and then you're like, you know, doctor heal thyself. And that's it. Okay, the modern stoic over in our vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Women commit violence by proxy. They have been involved in starting every war in history, but we do not record these things in books. At the risk of using an analogy, first of all, women do commit a lot of certain types of crime, especially when it comes to. Actually, I should double check. Let me go ask Grok here. When it comes to infanticide, who commits more infanticide between men and women? My reflex is to say women by a statistically significant proportion, but I might be wrong. The question of who commits infanticide between men and women is complex with various variations depending on how infanticide is defined, which include yada. Let's go to the conclusion. While mothers are predominantly responsible for neonaticide, the broader category of infanticide or filicide shows a more balanced or even distribution. Okay. Women start. Yeah, the men fight the wars for the women. No, I'm trying to think of something else that would have been funny. Yes, no, I was going to say the analogy, which might get me into trouble, but tough shit. You know, like pit bulls. Chihuahuas probably bite more often than pit bulls, but pit bulls put kids in the hospital or people in the hospital or underground more often than chihuahuas. And so everybody looks at a pit bull and says the pit bulls are more dangerous than the chihuahuas, although chihuahuas bite more often. So take that analogy exactly where I meant to go with it. All right, I am about equality, says Encryptus. That is equality of opportunity, not equality of outcome. That's right. It's the difference between equality and equity. If the woman can meet the same physical standards as men, go for it. If they can't, they can't. Simple as that. Absolutely. If a fat man can't cut it, neither can a healthy, skinny woman, if she can't cut it. Period. It's not even controversial. What is controversial, segueing into our navigation over to Rumble, Gavin, the ever jittery, gesticulating Newsom. Now, before we go, because we're going to tune it down on CommieTube right now, locals, come one, come all. If you want to bypass it and come right over to vivabarneslaw.locals.com, it's over here. Go, but we are going to end on CommieTube, and I want to see the number. I would love to see the number get below 1,000 before we do this. Rumble is where all the cool kids hang out, says Polish Dog. And Polish Dog, and then King of Biltong agreed. Okay, good. Okay, let's just see the number go below 1,100 on CommieTube. And YouTube just tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. Kaylin Georgescu, Viva Fry. Mine has bacon. Viva Fry hates YouTube, says Chris Banks. All right, we're doing it. Pete is a winner. I want a winner. Military. He was very good in terms of talking about, you know, they used the word lethality quite a lot today. And I can tell you one thing in terms of what was it Duckworth? No, who was it? It was the other one. When the military sees the world. No, it was Duckworth. When they see a military that doesn't look prepared. Yeah. When they have furries in the military, when they have TikToks of trans military men. Yeah, I'm inclined to believe that the world is watching that as well. Ganthet says, regardless the hypocrisy of those calling into question his infidelity, if a man can't honor a sacred oath to his wife, who in the right mind wouldn't question his integrity in keeping it to a nation? Let me because one is, well, I can steelman that argument both ways, but some might even say biologically it's natural that men are not monogamous. But no, in terms of it being a relevant, I mean, that's like saying if anybody's lied to their kid, what's to say they're not going to lie to the country? It's sort of, we're talking about two different things and they need to be treated differently. Have you ever lied? Yeah. Oh, then what's to say you're not going to lie about your oath to the country? Well, you've lied. Okay, that's it. You're out. Boopsy says someone who drinks now and then can relate to and support military and veterans. Someone who drinks like Winston Churchill might still be able to. All right, we've hit that low number on CommuTube, so we're out. Come on over to Rumble. 5, 4, 3,